Hi, this is Ridea Keeping It Real, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are reading through the Bible using the Good News Bible, and we are in the second book of the Apocrypha, the book of Judith. We've read through chapters 1 through 4, and it's about how King Nebuchadnezzar went to war, and he had asked all these different nations to support him, and they didn't, because they didn't think he was going to win the war. But then he did win the war. And then Nebuchadnezzar vowed that he would take revenge on all the nations that didn't help him. And so he's going through and killing people in these nations, looting the nations, taking all their loot. And now he's at the point of where these nations are afraid and they're asking for peace. And he's like, I don't care. Hey, if you give up, then maybe I'll give you peace. Maybe I won't. It's just up to me. What do I do? You know. Um, so the people of Judah, the Israelites, they know what's happening. And they're like, well, he's coming for us next. So they've just recently returned to Judah from exile and rebuilt the temple. So they're afraid a little bit. So what did they decide to do? They decided to pray. They prayed before war. And the Lord heard their prayers. That's important. So that's where we're at. We're on chapter 5. And this book has 16 chapters. So let's see how far we can get today. So before we start that, I did ask Chat GPT about Judith and how does it relate to today. And the reason why I did that is because I'll never forget in the 80s, I was working for a company called Hurt Celanese, and there was this one woman, she was a black woman, and I think she was from Africa, and she would read the Bible every day at lunch. And I remember thinking, just a thought, was that how does that relate to all the crap that's going on right now in this company, politically, in the world? It was when computers were starting to, desktop computers were being introduced and the cell phone was introduced. And I just remember thinking, why is she doing that? Like, how does that relate, these stories? So I did. I said, okay, how, chat, let's go with that for a minute. How does Judith relate to today's world? And I always ask Chat to tell me from a non-Eurocentric point of view. I do pay the $20 for the premium Chat GPT because now it knows me and it remembers what I do and what I'm asking it, so I don't have to get an answer that's not related to what it already knows about me. So it's answering from a non-Eurocentric point of view. And it says that, it's relates to today's events because it tells the story of a small and faithful remnant defending a massive empire, not with weapons of war, but with courage, strategy, trust in the Most High. So Judith, she's this widow, so she's a woman that's underestimated, and she delivers Israel from the oppressor by daring to act when men hesitated. We haven't seen this part yet where men hesitate. So she acts. Let's see how she acts. And so it's saying that her victory rests in the power. Her victory showed that power doesn't only belong to armies of rulers, but can rest in the hands of those who walk boldly in the covenant of the Creator. I asked it about how it relates to Three Eye Atlas, and it said if Three Eye Atlas, the comet coming, signals a cosmic reminder of human frailty, then Judah's story reminds us that salvation is not found in technological strength or political allowances, but in righteousness and obedience, and that the comet could be read as a wake-up call that kingdoms rise and fall, but divine justice overturns the arrogant. I asked about how it relates to free speech, and it said, this is interesting. In the United States, the battle over free speech is framed as political, but at its root, it's about who controls the narrative. So Judith teaches that the oppressor always relies on fear and propaganda to maintain power, but in today's governments, media outlets, tech platforms attempt to silence and steer voices especially those that challenge the empire or expose lies. But truth tellers like Judith must be wise as serpents. This is important. I asterisk this. Knowing when to speak, how to act, and how to pierce through deception without being consumed by it. So we can't tell everything we know. Not on these platforms. We cannot. Judith and the nation of Israel, ask about that. So from a non-Eurocentric perspective, Judith isn't about the modern political state of Israel. It's about the true people of Israel, the scattered and oppressed descendants who have been awakened across the earth. The Eurocentric claim of Israel as the people of the book is distorted history. The real Israel is not found in statehood or military alliances. To those who keep the commandments and remain faithful in exile, such as Judith. And then, Judith and today's global events. So today's empires are trembling. Economically, with inflation, debt, and instability. Politically, with division, propaganda, and censorship. And spiritually, religious systems exposed as false. So Judith's story offers hope. Empires may boast, but they can fall overnight. The remnant role is to fast, which we're coming up on the Day of Atonement, to pray every day and all day, and to act with wisdom when the moment comes. So I'm going back to the lady sitting at the table in the cafeteria, where when you're reading these stories, it will help us to know what to do and how to act, because there's people and ancestors that have gone on before us that have had these situations and how they handled it. So in short, the book of Judith is a manual for today. When cosmic signs appear through your atlas, when nations silence truth, free speech battles, when empires claim closeness, with empires claim chosenness, modern Israel, the remnant must rise with faith and courage. Through the awakened covenant people who know their true identity. So that helped me. And I hope that helps those of you that are studying to say, what can we do with these stories? How can we learn from these stories? How can we use these stories today? So back to Judith. We're on Judith chapter 5. Here we go. So the war council in the camp of Holofernes. Those of you that don't know, I don't pronounce the words right. Sometimes I skip over them. When Holofernes, the Assyrian general, gotta get closer here. The Assyrian general heard that the Israelites had prepared for war, blocked the mountain passes, fortified the mountaintops, and set up roadblocks in the plains. He boiled over with anger. He called together all of the Moabite rulers, all of the Omenonite generals, and all the governors of the region along the Mediterranean coast, and said to them, "You live in Canaan, so tell me about the people who live in these mountains. Which cities do they occupy? How large is their army? What is the source of their power and strength? Who is the king who leads their army? Why have they alone of all the people in the West refused to come out and surrender to me?" Wow. Oh, wow. That's deep. The speech of Achior, Then Achior, the leader of the Amorites, answered Holofernes, "Sir, if you will, please be so kind to listen to me. I will tell you the truth about these people who live in the mountains near your camp. I will not lie to you. These people are the descendants of 7 Babylonians who abandoned the ways of their ancestors in order to worship the God of heaven. Finally, they were driven out of their land because they refused to worship their ancestors' gods. Then they fled to Mesopotamia, where they settled and lived for a long time." That's interesting. Interesting history. Afterwards, their God told them to leave Mesopotamia and go to the land of Canaan, where they settled and became very rich in gold, silver, and livestock. So when the Most High tells us to move, we need to know to move. Later, when a famine struck all the land of Canaan, these Israelites, as they were later called, went down to Egypt and stayed there as long as there was enough food. While they were there, they became a large nation with so many people that they could not be counted. So the king of Egypt turned against them. He took advantage of them and put them to work making bricks. He oppressed them and made them slaves. But they prayed to their God, and he sent disasters that left the Egyptians helpless. When the Egyptians drove them out of the country, their God dried up the Red Sea in front of them and then led them along the way to Sinai and Kadesh Barnea. The Israelites drove out all the people who lived in the southern part of Canaan, occupied the land of the Amorites, wiped out the people of Heshbon, crossed the Jordan River, and took possession. Let me get this right. And took possession of the entire mountain region. They drove out the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Shechemites, and all of the Girgashites. The Israelites have now lived in these mountains for a long time. And see, when I see these names, these are the real names of the real different tribes. Their God hates wickedness. And I'm not sure if when I was reading this, if I hadn't looked at it from relating to today, if I would feel the way I feel right at this moment. But I feel like if I wasn't reading this, I couldn't be doing anything more important than reading this, is the way I feel. Their God hates wickedness. And as long as they did not sin against him, they prospered. But when they disobeyed him, they suffered heavy losses in many ways and were finally taken away as captives to a foreign country. The temple of their God was leveled, and their cities were occupied by their enemies. But now that they have returned to their God and have come back home from the countries where they have been scattered, they have again taken possession of the city of Jerusalem, where their temple is, and have settled in the mountains that have remained uninhabited. Sir, these people are now sinning against their God, even unknowingly. And if we can be sure that they are guilty of some offense, we can successfully attack them. But if they have not disobeyed the law of their God, then you should leave them alone, or he will defend them, and we will be disgraced before the whole world. The reaction of the crowd. When Achior had finished his speech, all the people standing around the tent began to protest. Holofernes' own senior officers, as well as the Moabites and the men from the Mediterranean coast, demanded that Achior be put to death. Why should we be afraid of these Israelites? They asked. They are weak. They can't put up a strong defense. Let's go ahead, General Holofernes. Your great army will slaughter them easily. There's some notes down here. The speech of Holofernes. When the noise of the crowd around the council had subsided, Holofernes spoke to Achior in front of the entire group. The men from the Mediterranean coast, the Moabites, and the Amorites mercenaries. Oh, that's the mercenaries. Amorite mercenaries. Some manuscripts do not have these words. Okay. Achior, who did Achior, who do you think you are? Acting like a prophet. Who are you to tell us not to go to war against the Israelites because some God will defend them? Nebuchadnezzar is our God. Oh, gosh. And that's all that matters. He will send his army and wipe these Israelites off the face of the earth. Their God can't help them. But we serve Nebuchadnezzar, and we will beat them as easily as if their whole army was one man. They will not be able to hold their ground against our cavalry. It will overwhelm. The mountains will be soaked with their blood, and the valleys will be filled with their corpses. After our attack, they will be completely wiped out. Not a trace of them will be left. This is the command of Nebuchadnezzar, the Lord of the whole earth, and he doesn't speak idle words. Achior, you are nothing but an Amorite mercenary, and you talk like a traitor. You will not see me again until I come and punish this race of runaway slaves. Ooh, ooh. And when I do, my soldiers will put you to death. You will be just another name on the casualty list. Now my men will take you into the mountains and leave you in one of the Israelite towns, and you will die with the people there. Why look so worried, Achior? Don't you think the town can stand against me? I will carry out all my threats. You will be sure of that. Achior is brought to Bethula. Then Alaphaz ordered his men, who were waiting in his tent, to seize Achior, take him to Bethula, and hand him over to the Israelites. So the men seized Achior and took him out of the camp into the valley. From there they led him into the mountains as far as the spring which was below Bethula. When the men of the town saw them approaching, they picked up their weapons and ran to the top of the hill. Every man who used a sling as a weapon rained stones down on Halafer's soldiers, and this stopped them from coming any further up the mountain. The Assyrians were forced to take cover along the mountainside, where they tied Achior up and left him lying in the foot of the mountain. Then they returned to Halaferes. Later, when the Israelites came down from Bethula, they untied Achior, brought him into the town, and took him before the town officials, who at that time were Uzziah's son of Mecca and the tribe of Simeon, Cabria's son of something, and something's son of something. The officials called together the town elders, and all the women and the young men also ran to the assembly. Achior had brought before the people, and Uzziah began questioning him. He was brought before the people, and Uzziah began questioning him. Achior told them what had been said at Halaferes' war council. And think their war council is going on today. What he himself had said. But they can sit in these war councils, but if they don't have the wisdom and they don't have the Most High on their side, it's not going to help them. So Achior told them what had been said at Halaferes' war council, what he himself had said to the Assyrian officers, and Halaferes had boasted about what he would do to the Israelites. When the people heard this, they fell on their knees and they worshiped God. They prayed. And this was their prayer. Oh, Most High God of heaven, look how our boastful enemies have humiliated your people. Have pity on us and help us. Then they reassured Achior and praised him for what he had done. After the assembly was over, Uzziah took Achior home with him and gave him a banquet there for the elders. All that night they prayed to the God of Israel for help. The siege of Bethula. I think I'm going to get through chapter 7. The siege of Bethula. It's almost like I can't breathe. It's like better than a movie. Better than Netflix. Okay, chapter 7. The next day, Holofernes gathered his whole army together, as well as his allied forces. It was an immense army consisting of 170,000 infantry and 12,000 cavalry, not counting the support troops who took care of the equipment. He ordered them to march on Bethula, seize the mountain passes, and attack the Israelites. So they moved out and set up camp beside the spring in the valley near Bethula. The camp was so wide that it spread out towards the town of Dotham, as far as Belbeam, and so far as the stretch of Bethula to Canaan and the faces of Jezreel Valley. When the Israelites saw the size of the army, they were terrified and said to one another, "Those soldiers are going to eat up everything in sight. There is not enough food in the mountain villages and hills put together to feed an army like that." But in spite of their fear, all the Israelites took up their weapons, lighted signal fires on the towers, and remained on guard duty all night. The next day, Holofernes led out his entire cavalry so that the Israelites in Bethula could see them. He inspected the approaches to the towns and the springs that supplied its waters. He seized the springs and stationed guards there before returning to the camp. All the leaders of the Edomite and Moabite forces, along with the commanders of the troops from the Mediterranean coast, came to Holofernes and said, "Sir, if you listen to our advice, your troops will not suffer heavy losses. These Israelites do not rely on their weapons for defense, but rather on the height of the mountains where they live, since the mountains are not easy to climb. So then, General Holofernes, if you do make a direct attack on them, your whole army will suffer no casualties. Stay in your camp and keep your soldiers in their quarters. Just command your men to blockade the springs at the foot of the mountain." Bear with me. Because that's where the people at Bethula come to draw their water. Then, when they are dying of thirst, they will surrender their town to you. Meanwhile, we and your men will go up to the top of the surrounding mountains, where we will set up camp and keep anyone from leaving the town. Everyone will starve to death, men, women, children, even before we attack. The streets will be littered with their corpses. In this way, you can make them pay for their rebellion and for refusing to surrender peacefully to you. Remember who's saying this? The Edomites and the Moabites. Holofernes and his entire staff were pleased with this suggestion, so he gave orders to put the plan in action. The Moabites and 5,000 Assyrians moved their camp into the valley to control the source of the town's water. The Edomites and the Amorites went up into the mountains and set up their camp opposite the town of Dothan. They sent some of their men to the southeast in the direction of Akraba near Chuzi, which is beside the Mokmar River. The rest of the Syrian army set up camp in the valley. Their camp was spread out over the whole countryside because the number of tents and the amount of equipment needed for such a large army were immense. Then the Israelites cried out to their Most High for help. They had lost their courage, but with the enemy all around them, there was no way to escape. The entire Assyrian army, infantry, chariots, and cavalry blockade Bethula for 34 days until the town ran out of water. All the reservoirs and cisterns went dry, so that the drinking water had to be rationed, and not a day passed when there was enough water to go around. Children were becoming weak everywhere throughout the town. Women and young people were collapsing. No one had the strength left. Tells you water's important, right? And you should be stacking up on it. That's them needing water. We're going to color that picture. Almost there. All of the people of the town, men and women and children alike, gathered around Uzziah and the town officials and shouted in protest. God will punish you for what you have done to us. You are to blame for what is happening because you did not make peace with the Assyrians. There is no one to help us now. God has put us in their power. We are exhausted and dying of thirst. Call the Assyrians now and surrender to them, and let Holofernes and his army take the town and loot it. We are better off as prisoners of war. They will make us slaves, but at least we'll be alive, and we won't have to watch our wives and children dying before our eyes. Keep this in mind. There could be space in this again. Heaven and earth are witnesses against you, and so is our God, the Lord of our ancestors, who is punishing us for their sins as well as ours. We can only hope and pray that he will not let these terrible things happen to us today. Everyone there began to weep loudly and to pray to the Most High their God. Then Uzziah said to them, "Don't give up, my friends. Let's wait 5 more days to see if the Most High will be merciful to us. Surely he will not abandon us completely. But if no help comes after 5 days, then I will do as you say." So Uzziah dismissed the people. All the men returned to their guard post on the walls and towers, while the women and the children went back to their homes. The morale of the entire town was low. So everybody's dejected. Well, why are they dejected? Because they're hungry and they're thirsty and they think they're going to die. You know? So they prepared as much as they could, but not enough. And so I think this is where Judith is going to come in and save the day. But this is it is a good reminder. You know, we may be faced with some things we don't want to be faced with. And we have to be prayed up and know that the Most High is going to be there for us. We've been through a lot already. So we know we can get through more. But it may be time for us to really get serious about keeping the feasts that are coming up. You know, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement. We may need to be that prayed up. So this was Judith. We're up to chapter 7. I'm going to finish coloring this. And this is Ridea keeping it real. Until next time.